Okay, hi, I'm Tara here.
I'm Laurice.
So we'll show our books here. So my book was Evicted, and it's by, so a little summary, I guess, of my book. It was by Matthew Desmond, and he originally published it in 2016. And obviously, by the title of my book, it's about people being evicted. The main place that my book takes place is in Milwaukee, and the two kind of areas are the north side, which is the poor Black community, and then the south side, which is the poor white community. There are a lot of people in my book. It follows many people's stories, and they all kind of intertwine in things, so it's a little difficult to follow, and I'm going to try and give my best overview of it. But to start off, the first person that kind of is of importance in this book is, her name is Sharina Tarver. She is one of the landlords, and she is a professional landlord. She used to be a teacher, but then her and her husband moved to being professional landlords. Her husband's name is Quentin. And then their tenants, some of them are Arlene Bell, and she's a mom. She has two sons, Jory and Jafaris. Lamar, who is a man who doesn't have any legs. Oh, and I should mention that all of these residents all reside in the north side, so that poor Black community. There's Patrice Hinkston, who is a young mom, and she lives above Lamar, and then her mom, Doreen Hinkston, lives below her, so right next to Lamar. The other area that, like I said, I mentioned before, is the south side, and that is that poor white community, and the place that they talk about for evictions there is called the College Mobile Home Park. It's owned by a man named Tobin Charney, but he lives super far away, so he's really not involved in the actual management of it, and that is left to a man named Lenny Lawson and a lady they call Office Susie. So the trailer park was obviously just a pretty poor trailer park. Tobin actually almost lost the trailer park in 2008 because the city wouldn't renew his license because they thought it was kind of a scummy part of town and they didn't really want to. But the people around, like the tenants, rallied around and the city ended up granting him the license again on the condition that he cleaned up the trailer park, which also included getting rid of the people that they considered dirty, quote. And so he immediately started handing out eviction notices. Some of the people that were evicted in this situation was a lady named Lorraine. She was evicted because she was constantly behind on her rent or underpaid her rent. Another one was Pam and Ned, who were crack addicts. And they ended up being evicted, but they moved into another person's trailer within that park, whose name was Scott. He was a nurse who was fired because he was stealing painkillers and opioids from the place which he worked. And one thing that I'll talk about a little bit later more is they considered these people, when you see that a lot, that they would move in with people that once they were evicted, they would move into other people's houses and stuff, who were just as likely to be evicted as them, honestly. And they would call those people disposable ties, because they're strangers that you just move in, that are gonna help you, but they don't really have any relation to you. So if you burn those ties, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, so those are kind of some of the people that were in that the trailer or the mobile home park. So like I said, there's lots of moving parts. Hopefully you can kind of follow within that. But some of the other ones that obviously were evicted, and this is going back to Sharina's properties, the Patrice was evicted because she didn't think she should pay all of her rent when things were broken and Sharina refused to fix them. So that ultimately ended up causing her to get evicted. Her mom also got evicted because she was refusing to or she withheld like $150 of her rent because she called a plumber and Sharina didn't like approve her calling that plumber to fix something. Yeah, pretty crazy, huh? So yeah, there's lots of like stories like that, and it really weaves in and out. The book, the way that it's set is that you'll be talking about like one person for a minute, and then even within that chapter, you're switching between stories, which were, like I say, there were some really like hard to read things, and we can obviously talk about that a little bit later after you talk about your book. But there was just some crazy. One of the other crazy ones was there was a lady whose name was Kamala, or Kamala, maybe, I don't know. And she lived in the apartment above Lamar's, that guy with the legs that I was saying earlier. And her apartment caught fire up above, and her like 8-month-old daughter ended up dying in it. But Sharina, the landlord, she like made sure that she was like not responsible for anything. So like, even though there might not have been working like smoke detectors in that, like she was not held responsible or anything for it, and ended up using that insurance money to buy new duplexes to like manage. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, so kind of like wrapping up though a little bit, and I think the most important parts really come down to this like epilogue at the end, where Desmond talks about kind of why this is so important and why we should care about all these people being evicted. And he says that home is the identity, and like it's our identity, and it's like our well-being. It's what allows us to flourish and to grow and to have kind of that sense of like who we are. And without that, we just kind of crumble. One of the things that he said is eviction leads to poverty, and I thought that was super interesting, that like it's not that poverty leads to eviction. And so he said that we must consider housing like an essential like right to us, kind of like just like how we consider like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness like our constitutional rights. We need to consider housing for people a constitutional right. And so I think that we can talk about this and kind of have a little bit of a discussion on it, but he gave ideas of like housing vouchers, a universal voucher to kind of reduce that. But yeah, so I mean, obviously, like I say, so hard to shove down all of those stories of people into just a few minutes, but I think it, like you say, it really comes down to that last part of him saying that like housing should be a right for everybody. So yeah, so that was my book. What about your book?
So my book is called Other Wes Moore, and it's by Wes Moore. Okay, so it's about like two Wes Moores with like two different like lives. Like they have like totally opposite lives. It's really interesting. And okay, so the author Wes Moore, I'm just gonna call him Moore, Mr.
Yeah.
Moore.
Yeah.
Other person, I'm gonna call him Wes.
Okay, sounds good.
So the author, Mr. Moore, he's like, so right now he's actually an author. He's like successful now. And then the other Wes, he's currently in prison actually until now.
Oh dang.
Yeah. So basically the other guy, like okay, I had him.
No, you're good. I know it's so hard to shove it all together.
The book has like different parts. I believe there's like 3 parts of it. Yeah, there's 3 parts. So the first part talked about like their childhood, their father, and like how it affected them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first part, it was like basically Moore, he actually has like he had a father, like he witnessed his father like died in front of him. He had like I think it was a heart attack, I'm not really sure it's been like long, but anyways, yeah, he died. Like he witnessed his father like falling down the stairs, and like him like going to the hospital and trying to revive his dad, but like it was too late. So yeah, so his father passed away like when he was 3 years old, and then the other Wes, he actually, growing up, he never actually met his dad. But then like so when he actually in the book he did met his dad, but because his dad, like his mom won't ever talk about his dad, because his dad was abusive, he was an alcoholic, just like not good for him at all. So yeah, and so the other Wes, he has a brother named Tony, and his brother is actually bad news too, basically. Yeah, he deals with drugs, he sells drugs, he's basically a drug dealer at a young age. And so while growing up, basically Wes kind of looked up like his like brother like as a father figure. So Tony would like tell him like go to school, like, you know, like stay in school, do better, like not copy me, don't go through like what I went through and stuff. But Wes, being hard-headed, did not listen at all. So while growing up, he actually went to juvie at a young age. He went to juvie like at 8 when he was 8 years old.
Oh dang.
Yeah, because so like one time he actually met up with his friend. His name was Woody, and Woody, like they lived in the same area, and their area is like not like, it's like kind of like a Black like community, and it's like the poor side. So like this is during like the Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Time. Yeah. So there's like segregation and stuff still going on. So yeah, they met up with his friend Woody, and they were like playing football. And at one point, like there was this other person, they were like playing, right? And then they had like a little argument. And the guy punched him, and the guy was like shorter than him, because like he's like, Wes is like built like really like tall. That guy punched him, and then he got pissed off, so he ran back home. Instead of like fighting back, punching him, he went home. He ran home, grabbed a knife.
Oh god.
And his friend was trying to like, no, don't do this, like just like keep it cool.
Yeah.
Stopping his friend. So but he didn't listen. So Wes like was holding a knife, and he ran towards like the park where they were playing. He was expecting like the guy to not be there, but he was still there, the guy who punched him. But there was cops too. They called the cops on him.
Oh, dang.
So yeah, he got caught for that. And basically his life, it's like, it's not good.
Yeah.
It's going downhill and stuff. At the age of I think 12, I believe he was 12 when he actually started becoming like an official drug dealer.
Dang.
So yeah, it was like, yeah, he was 12. And yeah, so he was 12 when he started becoming an actual drug dealer, because he was like thinking like, oh, he's not gonna have enough money and stuff, because like his mom wanted to go to college too, but like they didn't have enough money. They didn't have that money to actually still continue to go to school. So yeah, he didn't go. He actually dropped out too of high school. But then like few years later, one of his baby mamas, he has two, I believe he has two. So like the second one of his like she was a drug addict too. So she was doing meth, and like he would come home, like the girl has like a needle, like it basically, yeah, it was really bad.
Oh dang.
So yeah, one of his baby mamas was a drug addict, and he realized that's the point when he realized like his effect in his community.
Mm-hmm.
One of those people who would sell drugs and stuff. So he, at that point, he stopped. He was like thinking like, oh, I don't like, this is not good. Like he basically wants to change.
Yeah.
So he went to this, he started working like getting his GED, which he did get his GED. And so he would work and every time, but then at one point when he like, because he like works a lot, only $9 a day, like that's like what he gets.
Oh dang.
And so yeah, he would work, and then he actually when he got like, every time he would get tired, he would go and buy cocaine. So he would do drugs again.
Mm-hmm.
Do drugs and sell drugs. And yeah, he got caught for that. Got caught again. So oh yeah, sorry.
You're okay.
So and then so apparently like she like the other of like the baby mama, so they obviously didn't end up together.
Mm-hmm.
So that girl's name was Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
So Alicia, they have like, but yeah, they have, I think, two kids. They had two kids. And so when they broke up, and Alicia had like a boyfriend. So like when they were like talking and then they split up, and the boyfriend's name was Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Ray was like outside of like the apartments. So like they basically, Ray confronted Wes about something that like they had an argument. And then but basically the ending of that, like Wes shot Ray.
Oh dang.
Yeah, and then so Ray was shot, and then Wes was obviously was in trouble for like shooting Ray.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually went to he was arrested for that. And then many years later, he's still in like the bad side of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his Tony. So this is basically how he ended up in jail. Him and Tony and two other people robbed a store and then stole some jewelry and stuff. They ended up in the news. So they end up on the news, and they were on a run for like a week, but they were armed too. So they shot a off-duty police officer.
Oh dang.
Yeah, they were wanted for that, and they like when they found him, that's when they sentenced him in jail for like the rest of his life.
Gotcha.
And his brother too, but the book didn't mention about the other two people.
Mm-hmm.
But they probably were in jail too.
Yeah.
And then the other Wes Moore, the author. Sorry. So the author, so his dad died when he was 3 years old, and then they were actually more successful than the other Wes Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And so his dad died, and he actually got into like he hung out with bad people too, but it wasn't as bad as the other Wes.
Yeah.
And more like he got arrested, but they only got a warning because like they did the graffiti.
Mm-hmm.
So they got caught for that. And so the officer gave them a warning, and then they let them go, but then he did it again. And his mom, Mary, I think it's Mary. Sorry, there's too many names.
I know.
Joy, okay. So Joy actually warned him before, because like when he got in trouble the first time, he warned his son about like, getting in trouble and stuff, because they actually moved. So their previous place was really bad. There were like drugs and stuff going on too, and like some war, like kind of like a war going on. And then so they moved to his grandparents' place, Joyce's parents.
Mhm.
So in Joy's mind, when she was little, that place was like amazing, like no stuff happening.
Mhm.
But when they moved there, there were drugs too. Like drug stuff is happening there too, drug dealing. And she didn't want that to happen to his son. So like Joy was like actually hands-on with Moore. So yeah, so basically Moore got in trouble for the graffiti and he did it again, but then Joy actually told Moore that if he gets in trouble again or if his grades like slip off, he's going to military school.
Yeah.
But then when Moore got caught, so she basically sent him to military school and that straightened him up. Actually got inspired to do better, be a better person. So one time Moore visited one of his uncles, and his uncle told him something because like he wanted to be an NBA player. But his uncle was like, oh, like not everybody's gonna get in. You need to have like a backup plan. And then that got Moore thinking like, oh yeah, I do need a backup plan. So he didn't pursue NBA, basically.
Yeah.
He was like, I pretty sure I have little chance. So he didn't go. And then so yeah, he joined the military instead. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Like he became like successful and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I get the gist of like your story and stuff, and that's I feel like there are a lot of parallels you can kind of see with kind of what like Matthew Desmond was saying about, I mean, granted, they both kind of got in trouble and didn't necessarily have like the, perfect lives, but you can kind of see how, that poverty and like that trouble like drug the one down, whereas obviously his family, the now successful, not incarcerated Wes Moore, his family obviously had enough money, and wealth to send him to that military school and pay for that, which would ultimately change his life and help him become, the successful person that he is now. So you can kind of see that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you have some like things that you want to talk about like your book or like perspectives or things. But I can start with like one that I had, and I kind of wanted to touch back and see like your thoughts on that thing where I said, and well, what Matthew Desmond said, not I just told it to you, but when he said eviction is a cause, not just a condition of poverty. And I like, for at least for me, like I think that is just such a, it's a cause of poverty, not just like a condition of like, oh, if you're poor, you're gonna get evicted, but like because you're evicted, you're gonna be poor. So I don't know, what do you think like about that, or do you have any like thoughts on it?
I think for like other people, they would think like the opposite of like what he said.
Yeah.
If you're poor, that's why you got like evicted and stuff. But like, yeah, I think it can be like, it's not just that. How do I describe it? Sorry, I'm really.
Oh, you're good.
Because other people think like if you don't have enough money, like you would get evicted, but then it's not that. Like it's oh my gosh.
No, like you're totally touching on something it talked about in the book of like it's saying how when you have like an eviction on like your record, because like that can like show, especially because when you get evicted you can go to like court, and it talked about that some in the book. Like you'll go to eviction court, and because that's a civil court, first of all, the like state won't appoint you a lawyer. Like in a criminal case you'll be an appointed lawyer if you can't afford one, but not in a civil case, which obviously an eviction is. and it talks about how like that can go on your record then, and then jobs won't hire you because of that. And I'm like, like I never knew like that. And like, and I think, obviously the purpose kind of this assignment is to just kind of like open your eyes to things. And like, I mean, thankfully I've never my family, I've never been evicted. Like I haven't even had like a relative who's been evicted. So like, I think especially for a person, who's grown up like well and always never had to worry about like food on the table or things like that, which I'm so grateful for. It really just like opens my eyes, because and it's, kind of what we've been talking about all along in diversity of, you don't realize your privilege and like what you have until you see the other side of it. And even or just like reading about it, I think really opened my eyes to that.
Yeah. Oh, and it's like, so for like actually my book, like how we talked about privilege in class. Mm-hmm. Privilege, yeah. About like, so yeah, like how the author Wes Moore, like he had like enough money to actually go to school and stuff. Mm-hmm. His mom tried to have like a better place for him and his siblings, which I think she actually did a pretty good job for that. Mm-hmm. For the other Wes Moore, I mean, his mom did try to like get him into like a good school and stuff, earn money for him, but they just didn't have that like enough money to actually go to like a school and stuff. And I think it has to do, so the book he actually mentioned something about like it says like about community and how it can affect a person. Basically, like if you have like bad influence people around you, like you would get influenced. Well, you're gonna try not to, but like you might end up doing like the same thing as what they are. Yeah. So, like he was comparing like their perspective of like their community and stuff, like people around them, like how if the other Wes Moore had like a better older, like what's that one word? A better person, like to look
a role model.
Yeah. He would probably be better, but it was too late for him when he realized that, because like he was in jail already. But actually he actually works in he actually has a job at the he's a carpenter now at a correctional institution.
Oh, cool.
He's like slowly changing his life now. He's not doing like bad in the thing. But yeah.
Something you were saying too about that of like community and like, you kind of are what your community is. It reminds me of two things within my book. One, like it was talking about these communities of like, people who have been evicted, and kind of, I mean, in somewhat I was saying about the disposable ties thing, but I mean, some people don't consider those like disposable ties. They consider them just like actual connections of people in communities that are more likely to be evicted, though, are more likely to help pay for somebody else's rent, help pay for groceries, help, childcare and those kinds of things, way more than their well-off like neighbors. But the interesting thing about that, though, is the book also talks about how sometimes those people who are like helping one another pay the rent, do the groceries or whatever, they see their pain more clearly. And because they can clearly see like, this person's problems are A, B, C, and D, they are actually less likely to be able to like help themselves out of that like poverty. They like kind of crush their own potential because they can see like their pain and their problems. They then don't allow themselves to see like the potential that they have themselves, or even just within their community, the potential that they have. And so once again, it just kind of shoves those scales down of, maybe they have more potential than they think, but because of, the way things are and systemic like segregation and whatnot. And I mean, that's a whole nother part of my book that it talks about. Milwaukee is one of the most, like, still to this day, like, segregated cities, but I think it really just pushes those people like back down and doesn't let them reach like their full potential. So yeah, kind of crazy.
When you like said about them like helping out other people, and I think that's really nice of them, because like they probably think like they don't want to end up like, you know, like how they ended up, so like they're trying to like let them like go up there and stuff, which is like really nice.
Yeah, I mean, not to be like biblical, but it's kind of like the widow's mite. I don't know if you're familiar, or don't know if you're religious or whatnot, but just about like, even sometimes people will give the widow's mite, obviously. Do you know that story?
I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's like she's like paying her tithing, and there's all these like priests that are paying, like gold and whatever, and she has one little coin, but that's what she contributes to the church's fund type of thing. And in the Bible type of thing, Christ said that was, her one like mite was better than all the priests' gold, because they had tons of gold to return to, but that was her everything. And I think that you see that a lot within those communities of, they don't have anything, they only have one meal, but they are willing to split that meal with the person that doesn't have a meal today. So yeah. Anything else that you're kind of like stood out into your book, or that you kind of wanted to touch on? I don't think we have too much more time here, but
I think that, yeah, that's it for my book.
yeah.
But, I want to comment about my book. It's a good book, and I highly recommend it to like everybody. It's confusing.
Yes.
Like it doesn't say who the person is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I got into like different chapters, like the first like 3 chapters, it was confusing because it's just like, introducing other people. Then like when you started reading, you're like, oh, Mary, that's the other Wes's mom. And then Joy, like, oh, that's this other person. So like that's how basically you would know like who like that person's talking about.
Yeah.
It's a really good story.
Yeah, I know. I kind of agree. Same thing with like my book. In chapter 1, it would introduce somebody, and then you wouldn't hear about that person again until chapter 4. And they were like, oh, like Arlene. And you're like, shoot, who was Arlene? And I'd have to like flip back and see. But I like, granted, I don't know if this was like part of his purpose or anything, but I think that in some ways, like that jumping around and that like confusion is probably how like these people felt when they were getting evicted, like they're jumping around, they're going all over the place, there's lots of confusion, and yeah, so like, I mean, like I say, I don't know if that was purposeful in the way that he wrote this book, or if that was just kind of a accident that I have derived this alternate meaning to why the book was written like that. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I guess the one last thing that I thought was like super cool about this is that Matthew Desmond, he had like a harder life growing up. He was poor, or not a hard life, I guess, but he was poor, and he said they frequently would have their gasoline like shut off and things. And then in college, his parents got evicted from his childhood home. And so kind of this sent him down, like kind of more curious, and ended up getting his PhD in like humanities, I think it was. But he lived in Tobin, the trailer park, the mobile home park. He lived in there for a time. And he also lived in Sharina and Quentin, one of their properties that they managed as well. So to really just try and get like, immersed in these people's lives and what it was like to live in their like places. So I thought that was like pretty cool, and not just a person coming in and being like and observing from the outside of like, oh, like this is a trailer park, but actually like living in it. I think that he probably learned a lot and actually got to know the people from that.
Yeah, and experiencing how like it is. So
yeah. Okay, well, awesome. I think we're probably a little over time here, but I really enjoyed hearing about your book and our conversation. So yeah. Well, thanks, and we'll see you on class on Wednesday. Okay, I'm gonna